On the morning of September 11th, 2001, I was driving to work as the new principal at McKinley Middle School when I heard on the radio that a plane had hit one of the towers in New York City. I just sort of assumed it was a little plane, but by the time I got to work, it was apparent that was not the case. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. What do we do with school? Should we continue? We did. We had a quick meeting with the staff that was there, and we'd have school and keep things as safe as possible and as calm as possible. But it was a pretty unsettled day. And I think what made it worse was my father-in-law worked at the Pentagon. And when we heard that the Pentagon had been hit as well, we were really worried about him. And it was a great relief to find out that he wasn't there at the time. Hello. I'm Albuquerque Public Schools Superintendent Scott Elder. Most of us are old enough to remember that tragic day that permanently changed our lives, but most isn't all. For many of our students and the generations to follow, 9/11 is history rather than memory. The emotions of that day remain, and so do the challenges we face in coming to terms with what happened, why it happened, and how we ensure the memories of the 2,996 people killed in the attacks are never forgotten. For educators, that can be difficult. We're proud to share the work of two of our teachers who have found appropriate and meaningful ways to explore and understand a day just 20 years ago that changed everything.
You're going to organize yourselves into a human timeline.
History is a living, breathing thing for students in Randy Martin's social study class at Desert Ridge Middle School. Martin's students study 20 of the most significant events in civilization.
Even the Cold War is connected to 9/11, right? Crazy how that worked out. Well, after that, America decided to declare war on the Taliban. This should sound very familiar at this point because we've been talking about this for Modern Mondays. And now we've got the wars on terror, the rise of the Taliban, and of course, eventually the rise of ISIS.
Making sense of 9/11 isn't easy for educators because some parents of younger students feel they should decide when and how to broach that topic with their kids. Only 14 states require 9/11 instruction at all, so knowledge about this horrific day in American history varies from student to student.
I mean, it is very real since it's fairly recent, and I don't know, I feel like I was introduced to it at a fairly young age in elementary school, so now at this age I can talk about it more, but it is a really scary thing to think about.
What do you know about 9/11?
I just know it was something very tragic that happened to people, and it was a surprise, I would say, to a lot of people, and it left a lot of damage to people even if they weren't there in a specific day.
I know that ISIS suicide bombed the Twin Towers and it killed a lot of people, and that's pretty much it. I know a lot of people, and I know songs about it, and I know people who have lived in it, and I know that it was not good.
I don't have any personal connection to it, so I don't feel the significance or the importance. But I can tell that for Americans in the past, it was very traumatic.
You know, every year that I teach about 9/11 has to be a little bit different than the year before, because the students, early on, of course, this was within their own living memory, and they were able to recall their own stories, and everybody's got their own, where were you when 9/11 happened stories. And for them, at that point in time, it was very real. They were very young. It really affected them emotionally. And of course, now the students that are farther removed from it are farther removed from the emotional side of it. So what I try to do in my class is try to bring that emotional piece in. Partially because middle schoolers are just big balls of emotion in the end anyway. And if you can get them emotionally, you've got them.
Across town at Del Norte High School, history teacher Karen Cox takes a similar approach.
Oh, just a few years ago, those seniors had experienced or knew someone, and so now these last few years, they weren't born yet. So it's a historical event to them, but with the recent news and the withdrawal from Afghanistan and Kabul and things like that, it's why is this a big deal? And I'm like, okay, well, let me see if I can explain, and it all goes back to 9/11.
Cox and Martin know their students don't have a personal reference for pre-9/11 America, but the students also haven't escaped the chaos and violence of terrorism that we're still living through as history continues to be written. Today's students likely don't think about safety when boarding a flight. They can't recall an existence free of security barracks outside government offices, metal detectors in courthouses, and they may not realize entire branches of government have been created since 9/11 dedicated to national security. We know the past continues to shape the future, and both teachers feel that's a compelling reason to talk about 9/11 in the classroom. Because once the generation that lived through 9/11 is gone, who will be here to make sure we never forget?
I think presenting the material kind of chronologically and prefacing it, why this has been a scar on the American psyche and why it's so important. Our hearts broke and we're still not healed from that 20 years later, but it's affected everything in their lives.
Don't shy away from the tough history. Tough history is sometimes the most important history to teach. And if you're not teaching tough history, if you're not teaching tough topics with the understanding that you do have to approach it carefully, then you're doing a disservice to our kids and our community, and you're really giving into their ability to find information somewhere else, which of course leads into the issues that we have now with the misinformation age that we live in. So unless it's coming from a trusted source, your teachers and other related primary sources, then the students are going to get that information, and that's going to lead to bigger conflicts and bigger problems down the road.